Hello, everyone.
Welcome.
Yeah, well, let's give everyone a moment here. Um, and we'll do some introductions. So, my name is Johanna Stroba, and I'm the Director of Customer Success here at TimeZest. And I hope that um, you've interacted with the team at some point already, but if not, you've probably talked to myself or Dawn. So Dawn kind of meets people right out of the gate in your demo and trial era, as well as support. So welcome, Dawn. Thanks for hopping in. I know I kind of drug you out of your day to be here today.
Yeah, no worries at all. Definitely happy to be
Ah,
here.
yeah, it's a good opportunity for us to have a conversation. We try to do this about once a month. And I'm just going to say, I've got that back to school cough that just lingers forever. So I'm going to try not to cough in everyone's ear. But if I'm swallowing extra hard, that's what's going on. So um, today I really wanted to talk about focus this towards new TimeZest users and administrators, primarily new administrators. So whether your company has an account with us for the last couple of years and you're new to the team and new to getting in and looking at TimeZest and trying to understand it, or if you're a brand new TimeZest account and you've just come on and you're trying to figure out what you want to do next, this is kind of a quick start to that. I do want to preface that by saying that Don and I are here to help. Our entire team is very devoted to your success. And so you can always reach out to us. When you're in the application, there's a yellow chat box in the bottom right-hand corner, and that's our live chat support. It does have AI functionality now so that you can get quick questions answered as well as search the help center a lot easier as like a first line of defense. But then we're there in the background if you want to talk to a human as well. And then if you are a new account, um, you have onboarding that comes with your subscription. In some way, your sales team will probably talk to you about that, but we're here to help you. And so that is when you can meet with us to go through your system and make sure that it's optimized and talk about how you're going to work TimeZest into your processes. So I, I would think this is something you guys talk a lot about too, Dawn, is like not just the what to turn on, but the how, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, the big piece is like the adoption, right? How to get the team to bring it into their day-to-day processes. And the worst thing, for me is watching someone spend the time and money bringing TimeZest on and then it just sits there and doesn't you're not getting the ROI on that. And so it's my personal goal to make sure that you are getting the return on your investment. So with that said, as this is geared towards new users of TimeZest, I've reeled Dawn in to do a quick demo of what it looks like working out of a ticket. Um, and so what that user experience is. I'm going to be plugging in some documentation within the chat. And this is, going over using the pod or insight or tab. Depending on your PSA, there's different lingo for it, but it's the same thing, right? We're built into your ticket and it works the same way. And so Dawn, if you'll go ahead and take us over to ConnectWise. We picked that just as keep things simple. But like I said, it's the same in Autotask and Halo. Um, the shape of the pod's going to look a little bit different, but the functionality is the same within it. And then I'm
Mhm.
going to let Dawn take it away as best as I can. If you know me, I'm a talker. And kind of show you what this process looks like for your team. Um, And then we'll go into some like next level, right? So we want to keep it as basic as possible. And then we're going to talk about some additional features available on the pod. And then when we're done with this demo, we're going to shift gears and go to the TimeZest admin portal where we go in and actually manage this system and settings. Okay. So go ahead, Don. Show us what
Perfect.
you got.
Alrighty. Well, as you all should see on the screen, we have a ticket here in ConnectWise with Anna Marie at Pop Zig Consulting, and she is unable to print. And we have to schedule time with her. As you can see, the status we have being need to schedule. So whether it be your guys' dispatcher, your coordinator, or even level ones or level twos getting this ticket out of triage, they just need to simply send out the TimeZest scheduling request. And the easiest way to do that would be, like Johanna said, through the scheduling pod that we have here. First, you're going to do a drop down for the resource. You're going to select who needs to be scheduled with the end user. So for this example, we'll just use Dave Diver. And then you're going to do a drop down for the appointment type, and you're going to select the appointment type that best fits the need here. What we find with most of our customers, a phone call for 30 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that would probably be the most use case. So for this example, let's go ahead and do a phone call for 30 minutes. Once we have this information populated, you'll see this Ask Client to Schedule button does become clickable. So at this point, you guys would click that button. Now, once you do that, we're going to create that request and send it off to the customer. You'll see within the pod that we have created that appointment, and you can see that it's been created. Before I show you what it looks like on Anna's side of things, I'm going to quickly refresh the ticket here. You're going to see that we're going to first update the status. So that way you guys don't have to manually go through and update that status, which will help with SLA timers that you have set inside of the system. And then we're also going to be able to add notes within the internal discussion or resolution in ConnectWise at least. And you guys can pick and choose what you want the message to say. But this one just simply says, hey, we've created the request and sent it out to Anna. So now if we jump inside of Anna's mailbox, you'll see she's received that email from us. I know this says FipTech, but obviously this email is fully customizable for all of our customers. You guys can have your logo here at the top, as well as edit the email as you guys need. And the neat thing with all of our PSA integrations is we are able to pull in the ticket number and summary from each PSA. So that way your customers know exactly what they're scheduling with your team on. And then once they see the email come through, they'll simply hit choose a time. Once they do that, they'll be taken to our scheduling page as you see here. Now, at this point, we're going to show them availability based off of the appointment type parameters, as well as the availability of the resource selected. So for this example, let's go ahead and select tomorrow being the soonest available day that we have, and we'll take that 8:30 time slot being the first open time slot that we see. Now, at this point, we can present and ask for this number. That way your team knows what number to give the end user a call on. And then from here, they simply hit confirm. Once they hit confirm, we're going to do one last check here just to make sure nothing was booked, as well as make sure nothing breaks with the workflows that we have in the appointment type. If not, then we get to this confirmation page that you see here. Now, this reschedule button and cancel appointment button are customizable to the appointment type, so keep that in mind. But if the end user closes this tab, as most will do, in the follow-up email that they get, they'll see that reschedule and cancel button at the bottom, so that way they can go back and do so at any time. And then we also include that Outlook invite here at the top, so that way they add and accept and add to their calendar. And then if we jump back inside of the ticket and refresh, you're going to see a few more things that have been updated and changed automatically for you. First, we're going to update the status again. So that's going to further along the SLA timers that you have set. We're going to add another note within the ticket here, which will include all of the information about the appointment, as well as that phone number the end user put in. And then lastly, you're going to see your scheduled resource in the resource section for the day and time that the customer chose. And that is it. Nice and easy.
Yeah, fantastic. And that resource, just so everyone knows, if you're not familiar with ConnectWise, that directly correlates to the PSA calendar. So that is writing the event on the calendar. So no matter what your PSA is, that's what's going to take place. And we do that intentionally. So we have the ability to write appointments to, 365 standalone. If you're not really working in tickets, but when you work in tickets, we want everything in the ticket, right? So we want to be able to go through and see all the information, the meetings, the notes, the audit trail, all the things in the ticket. And another cool thing is we did, when you click the appointment types, you'll see, go ahead and click the appointment type drop down. There's a little camera icon on some of these. And that identifies that it's a online meeting. So that appointment type is set up to either be a Microsoft Teams or a Zoom meeting. And that'll actually give you a button to access that online meeting right here in the ticket. Again, with the whole thought process of keeping everything in the ticket so that you can get in there and access the information that you need. From here, I wanted to talk a little bit about another functionality that's available, and that's the generate URL. And the when you want to use it versus just pushing the ask client to schedule. So what we showed you was pushing ask client to schedule, which kicks off a lot of automation. And it kicks off kind of like this internal timer. So first, we're going to update the ticket status. When you do that, we're sending off an email to the customer. But then we have this timer going where we can set up some automation on the backside that will send a reminder to the customer if they don't schedule the meeting to say, hey, Anna, we need you to schedule, your meeting. And we have canned messaging, but you can create custom ones as well, just to put that out there. But we can set up these reminders to remind the customer that they still need to schedule their appointment. And then we set up a timing of, okay, after, I'd say 4 days, if the customer doesn't schedule the meeting, then we're going to update the ticket status to a no response status. So all of that is customizable by appointment type. So by those different types of appointment. And the reason why we do that is we know that an on-site appointment is going to have a lot different needs than a 15-minute sales call. And so we want to give you that customization to make it work for your team in those different scenarios that you're going to need for your business. Now we have the generate URL. You need the same parameters. You need the resource and the type of meeting. And then on the right side of the ask client to schedule is a little down arrow, and that goes to the generate scheduling URL. There's a couple use cases for this that are great. It does not kick off the automated follow-up reminder emails or that no response timer. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind. It is not what I consider should be your standard best practice. Your standard best practice should be ask client to schedule button, which makes it a more automated process. When you do the generate scheduling URL, it comes in handy when you have, let's say you have a big old email you're sending with a lot of details and you need to include a scheduling link within that. That's when you can just include that scheduling link within the email that you're sending out. And that comes in handy. But again, you're going to want to leverage maybe some automation within your PSA to follow up and keep track of that ticket, like a waiting on client or waiting on customer type status. The other handy little trick that most people don't know about, but is fantastic, if your team is on the phone with the customer, whether they need to schedule a follow-up or they've tried, maybe their first touch is doing a phone call and they actually get the customer, but the customer's like, I can't do it right now. What's your availability like? Dawn, let's go ahead and show them how the tech or the dispatcher can schedule for the customer while they're on the phone with them and get confirmation. So
Perfect.
Go ahead and grab that.
Yep. So once we click that generate scheduling URL, it will take a quick second, but then you'll see this pop up here. This will give you the full link that you can simply copy and hit OK. And the neat thing to quickly point out, once you hit OK, you will see in the pod tab insight that it does show the appointment was created and it was generated by that scheduling URL. And then once you open up a new tab, you can simply copy that link and paste it. And then to Johanna's point, now you're scheduling on behalf of the customer here. So if you guys have the customer on the phone, and a good use case that I see dispatchers, coordinators are taking live answer calls as they come in, then they're scheduling out the text from there. So at this point, they could say, hey, I don't have any available text, but let's go ahead and pull up the scheduling for Dave. Dave's going to be the best resource that we can get you on and working with. here's what he has available for Friday, and then they could just simply go through the list of times, see what works best for the customer. Once they pick a day and time or whatnot, then just ask, hey, what is a good follow-up number? That way Dave knows what number to give you a call on. They would hit confirm, and then just like the scheduling request before, that's going to then route back into the ticket, update the status, add the notes, and then get everyone on the meeting from there.
Yep. And so it's going to send the customer a confirmation email. You can see that here, just as we did previously, right? And we're going to update the ticket status and all of that. It just doesn't do the follow-ups of, keeping track of what's going on until they actually, or any of that, because we're kind of skipping that process. Okay. My brain glitched because I'm swallowing a cough. 1 second.
And one thing to note while Johanna's coughing her lungs out, you can have multiple scheduling requests on the same ticket. And I do want to mention that because not everyone realizes you can do that. So a good use case is when tickets are being escalated. Maybe the level 1 tiers do use TimeZest, get something scheduled, but then they have to escalate it. Then the level 2s can jump in, or level 3s can jump in and still use the same ticket for the next scheduling request that they need.
Which is perfect. Yeah. And sometimes you even need it for different contacts, right? Which kind of takes us into our additional options. So I did want to show you guys this while we're in here. So show additional options within the pod gives you some additional functionality that you can leverage. So we have the invite guest, which pretty much any email that you put in there, it's going to CC that person with a confirmed appointment email as well as calendar invite. They don't actually get to choose the time. They're just going to be invited to attend this session. And then we have some parameters. So if you need this to take place within a certain date or time range, you can set that up before sending the invite. And then we have use different appointment duration. So the appointment types have a default duration that you set up when you set up your appointment type, but you can change that on the fly. And that way, okay, we know Kathy's a little extra chatty. We're probably going to need 10 more minutes. You can add that in there, right? Gotta take account for the extra chatty people, right, Dawn?
Yep, they happen all the time.
being one. So, and then the next and last feature there is the schedule appointment with a different contact. And this is kind of hiding down here, but it's very valuable. So we see Anna is the primary contact on the ticket. And we know that sometimes the primary contact who submits the ticket isn't actually the person that you need to schedule the appointment with. And so what this allows you to do is to maintain the primary contact on the ticket, but then schedule the meeting with someone else within their company profile there. So you can see here we have Erica. We could select Erica, and then that meeting invite will be sent to Erica instead of Anna. Okay. So there's a lot in there. There's a lot of functionality. I put in the chat a document that lays out these different features and functions and how to use it. And the best practices around some of those, like the timing of reminders and things like that. The last thing that I want to talk about within the pod, and then we'll move on to more an administration type of role of TimeZest, is what we have, which is called panel scheduling and team scheduling. So these are two features that can sometimes get confused for, and I'd like to just go over this. So in this resource, you can see that there's some predetermined resource groupings, and we call these teams, and they have the little icon of the people next to them. And these, think of them like auto dispatching, where you're saying, okay, it's an or scenario. So we could say this meeting can be scheduled with Bob or Rob or Ben, right? So it's showing the availability for the resources within that team, but it's not scheduling all of them. It's only scheduling one. So again, teams are or Bob or Mary. Then we have what we call panel scheduling. And Don's going to show you what that looks like. Panel scheduling is where you're adding multiple people into the resource box, and these are and variables, right? So it's going to be and Dave and Ben. We're adding additional people within the appointment. So I hope that makes sense. Team scheduling is like auto dispatching. You're doing ORs, and then you have selecting multiple, and that is and. Now, you'll see here, Don did something here. He has 3 people, 3 resources, and a team. And panel scheduling does work with a team. So it's going to schedule Augustine, Dave, Ben, and someone from the Alpha Red team, right? Uh, so it's going to not all of the team, just one person. So there's kind
Yeah,
of the variables there. And there
I
is
was
a
going to say a good.
limitation of 4.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Don.
I was just going to say a good use case for that could be a sales call. You need
Mhm.
the main salesperson on your team. You need the project manager on the team to understand the scope. You need a lead engineer, but then maybe you just need a level 2 technician. It doesn't matter who from the level 2 team. You just need one of them. So that's a pretty good use case that we see for the sales cycle side.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Real quick, let's take this one last little thing. You'll see on the different schedule entries in the pod, there's a log for each meeting. And on the right-hand side, there's a ellipses, and this is an action. So you can actually open that up, and you can cancel a meeting from there. And you can also copy the scheduling URL. So if the customer's like, oh, I haven't been able to see the email or find the email that you sent me, you can copy it and directly send it to them. This also, if it's an online meeting, will let you copy the Zoom URL or the Teams meeting URL and join that meeting from there as well. All right, let's go to TimeZest. And what we're going to look at and talk through are some of what I'm known for calling the meat and potatoes, right? So the basics that you really want to think about. And a lot of this, I think I want to start off with preset statuses. I find a lot of value in these preset statuses, and this comes from my days of working tickets and being a little particular to make sure that the ticket status was always updated and really clear and concise about what's going on with the ticket, right? Um, it's hard to know when you have a generic waiting on customer, what are we waiting on? What are we actually waiting on, right? And it's fine to be waiting on, them to reply or provide some information. But when it comes to TimeZest, I recommend having separate statuses for TimeZest. And so Don can show that under the ConnectWise integration or whatever your PSA integration is within here. Um, you'll see there's 4 statuses that are used. And I'm going to put another document into the chat about this. If you've ever worked with me, I like to provide documentation for everything. But what this is this is the life cycle of the scheduling request. Okay. So the first one is the status after creation, which is the creation of the scheduling request is what that's referencing. And so we want it to be something that stops your SLA, that has maybe no additional automated communication coming from your PSA that could conflict with our reminders that we're going to send. We don't want to send a bunch of noise to the customer, but we do want it to be very clear. We're waiting on the customer. We're waiting on them to schedule, right? So TimeZest schedule sent is great. I've also seen pending scheduling. I've seen TZ worked into the naming. Just so when you're looking at it, you know exactly what's going on with it. This status after scheduling, this is a scheduled status, right? So whether it's TimeZest scheduled or whether it's just scheduled. Um, you don't need to have your PSA send any confirmation emails or anything like that because we're taking care of that. And then the TimeZest appointment canceled. So as you saw when Dawn was showing us how it works, if the customer cancels the meeting, we do give them a pop-up box asking why they're canceling, and we push that through to the ticket. So I always recommend having this status maybe trigger your tech to review it, or kind of a client responded type status. So you can see why they canceled their meeting and then take action from there. And then the no response. This is the customer has not responded to the scheduling request, whether that, whatever your timer is on that per appointment type. We want to switch it so that we can take action on it. It's just not lingering out there in the universe, getting moldy, right? So I see MSPs handle this one of two ways. And Dawn, if you've seen anything different, piping about it. But what I usually see is either one, it goes to back to the tech or dispatcher to review and take manual action on. Okay, so you're using the automation or the workflows within your PSA to trigger, a follow-up needed type status. And then the other way that I see customers handle it is they do maybe some automation where it sends out maybe one more email to the customer. And we can set this up in TimeZest in our more complex, version, but you can use your PSA to send one more email. Hey, we've been trying to get a hold of you. If we don't hear back from you, we're going to auto close your ticket, right? And then you can start that pending closure type status where it goes into some automation. That's what I usually see, but you want to have some sort of follow-up action. You don't want to just lingering out there forever. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Anything?
have seen some customers go to closed. They've decided, hey, after they don't respond to TimeZest, then we don't need to follow up manually, and we're just going to close the ticket. You can, I personally would recommend just one more human touch, just so it doesn't get lost in the sauce completely, and then you deal with frustrated customers. But you're more than happy to have that a closed status if you'd like as well.
Yeah, whatever your process is, you can use TimeZest to support that and to build it out to to maintain that expectation. So I hope that's helpful. The other thing that I really wanted to go over today is your appointment types and some use cases and your adoption and all of that. And so we're going to go on over to appointment types. When you start your trial with this, we have 4 appointment types in there. And I think this can be a little deceiving because people see it and they're like, oh, I'm good, right? Especially when they see that shiny remote access to PC, because everybody loves that one. It's the main go-to. But they are not set up at all, actually. So it's pretty much just set up with a duration and a name. So we encourage you to really think about what kind of meetings is your business scheduling? And what parameters do those different appointment types need to support your team and be successful? Um, Caitlin, I see your answer. I just got a question from Caitlin. Will there be an option to set a status after the appointment has been rescheduled? Caitlin, it's just going to go back to a TimeZest scheduled. Whatever you have set for your scheduled appointment status, that's what it's going to be. Okay. So with your appointment types, I'm going to give you what I reference as required reading. And this is, Don's heard me say this 100 times, if not more. This is how MSPs use TimeZest. It is a fantastic use case collection. And at this point, I'm going to say, if you are using TimeZest in a really creative way that's not on that, please send it to us and we will add it to our list. But this should give you some ideas on different appointment types that you can build out, and different ways you can work it into your business, and that has some fantastic things, and we're going to touch on some more here in a minute. But Don, let's go ahead and open up an appointment type. And we're going to do it in our classic configuration to keep things simple today. We do have a workflow mode, which is more in depth, and you can get into the nitty gritty and break it down even more. But let's not overwhelm you guys too much today. But what we're going to talk about is those kind of meat and potatoes. And so Don, he does this all day long as well. And so let's go ahead, Don. I'll let you show us. Let's go through appointment details, scheduling options, and reminders, and just touch on the high points. And then I'd love to talk about shareable URLs and how we can use those as well.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So first one being the appointment details. So when you guys do create a new appointment type, it does ask you for the internal name and external name. And then when you come in here to the appointment details, it will display again. So you can always go back and change and rename those as needed. There's just one FYI there. We don't recommend putting the duration in any of the names just because we're going to display the duration elsewhere when the scheduling process goes through. So just keep that in mind. It just makes it a little easier to read and cleaner for your customers. But again, if you guys want to, you can. But outside of the names of the appointments, the big one here is going to be that duration. The duration is just going to tell your customers how long of a time frame you need for this appointment type. So just be mindful on what you put here. You don't want to short your text in Teams too much and not give them enough time for the appointment at hand, but then not set a too long of a duration. And then, yeah, I know how techs are. Probably use that extra time and waste it, and that's definitely not what you want. But what we see too, just to point out, we see customers will do like a phone call for 15 minutes. They'll do another one for 30 minutes, maybe another one for an hour. That way, depending on the need of the ticket or the request, then they'll just pick that specific appointment type that best fits the need for what they need.
Mm-hmm. And another thing is, not just a remote access or a phone call, but also a service offering. You can do one for one that I like is like a show me the problem or a triage type appointment type, where you don't really have enough information to go off of and give an accurate budgeted amount, but you could have that, a quick 15 to 20-minute conversation, or a new hardware setup. So that's where that how MSP use TimeZest article comes into play. It doesn't need to be just a phone call or remote access. You can do a password reset. You can do an install, or whatever you guys are offering. So I would add the other thing in here is the best contact number. That's a great one to use. We rolled that out during COVID because people were here, there, and everywhere, right? And you didn't know what was the best phone number to reach them at. So that's a good one to kind of put into play. I usually don't recommend it for online meetings just because it can create some confusion. But any other meeting type, it's fantastic. Let's go to scheduling options.
Perfect. So as Johanna likes to say, this is really the meat and potatoes of the appointment type. This is going to be the parameters that you have set for each one. A lot of key points to look at here just to make sure it's what you guys want. The top one being the allow rescheduling option. Do you want to give your customers the chance to reschedule or cancel the appointments? We do find most of our customers will just keep that there. It would help on the callbacks. If they don't have the option, they may call in more and then cause your team to have to field those calls. So we do usually recommend just keeping that enabled no matter what. But then that ties in with the minimum notice of changes here. That gives you the option to set how soon before the appointment they can cancel or reschedule the appointment. So you do set some parameters so they don't cancel, a minute before the meeting and then you guys get all ready for no reason. And then that then ties in with the custom note. So if they do need to cancel and it's too soon to the appointment, you can put in here a message to display. That way they know the reasoning on why they can't cancel or reschedule. One recommendation, have a phone number in there. That way they know what number to give a call to if they can't reschedule or cancel from the link. That way, again, they're not chasing down someone and getting frustrated.
Mhm.
Next section here is going to be, in my opinion, the most important section out of this out of these fields, I should say. The first one being the scheduling increment. This is going to be the increments of scheduling that's going to display to your customer. For example, if you guys start at 8 and it's set to a 30-minute increment, it's going to show 8 to 8:30, 8:30 to 9, 9 to 9:30, so on and so forth. So the higher the increment, the less available times that your customer will see. The shorter the increment, the more availability that you'll see. But it really just boils down to, what increment you guys want to show. We find 30 minutes tends to be the common one, just, a happy medium between the three options that we have. But just keep that in mind for the appointments. The next one being the minimum notice. That's going to be the customers wanting to schedule last minute piece to this. You definitely don't want that to happen. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But I know from my experience, techs need some time to plan and prepare for the meetings. So you definitely want to have a minimum notice on the appointment type. Common thing that we see, or at least that I see, 2 to 4 hours. That seems to be the most common use. You can change the drop down as well. So if you want to use business hours or business days, you can, or just use normal hours and normal days. Just be mindful if you do use business hours and business days for these drop downs, what you have your working hours in your PSA set to, because that's what our system is going to base it off of. So just, again, be mindful there. The next one, the scheduling window.
I do
Joanna,
want to
did you have
add
something to
something
add?
there.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. So for the minimum notice, another thing to think about is you can have appointment types that are priority based as well. So obviously, if their computer is on fire and the world is burning down, we're not going to send them an email to schedule an appointment. But you can have an appointment type that is a same day priority, and have others that maybe are next day, right? So you can use that minimum notice to really differentiate your priority levels of different offerings or meeting types, right? So something to keep in mind. You could have one that maybe it's a 15-minute or 30-minute minimum notice, and that's your we're trying to take care of this or get on the call with this person right away versus a couple hours out. So just another thing to keep in mind when you're building out your different types of appointment types. So, all right, Don.
Perfect. Good point. Yeah, definitely good point. The next one's going to be the scheduling window. This is going to be how far in the future you're opening your availability for this appointment type. Most service desk use cases we see, as you see here, 14 business days. That tends to be the most common one that I see. Some people even limit it to like a 7-day business, 7-day business days option. One thing to be mindful here, if you have this set to 0, it's, we have it set to no limit. We do have a backend limit of 90 days, so it's going to show you 90 days in the future if you have that set to 0. So just keep that in mind. If someone needs to schedule further than 90 days, I think a different conversation should be had there. But again, I think a 14-day window seems to be the most used. So I would probably go with somewhere around there. And then the appointments per day, this is going to tell the system how many of each appointment can be scheduled per person on your team. So if you want an on-site, for example, to be scheduled between 3 on-site staff members that you have, but you only want to present 1 per staff, on-site staff, you can change the appointments per day to 1. We're only going to allow 1 on-site appointment type to be scheduled per each on-site staff member that you have. That one's, I used on-site because that seems to be the most common one when people do set a parameter there. But again, you could use it for sales, right? If you only want 1 sales call per day, or QBRs, 1 QBR per day. So you could definitely use that in some good use cases. The next section is going to be the buffers. So the buffer you can set before and or after the appointment type. So we have two options, before and after, as I mentioned. Common use case, we see 15 minutes as you see, your techs need time to get the notes from the call into the ticket, as well as update the status, close it out, or message people. Or to Johanna's point earlier, you're stuck on the phone with someone who likes to talk, even though you allocated an hour, but they're still going. Giving that buffer time to your team is definitely beneficial. Now, you do see the two options to write it into the calendar. Be mindful if you do use those options, we're going to write that as another schedule entry. So it may cause some confusion for your team if they see all these different time entries. So we do recommend not usually checking that, but if you want to, you're more than welcome to.
It comes into play great for, travel time for on-sites. So that's when I usually recommend using that. Or if you really want some prep time before maybe a QBR or something like that, where you really need to have some designated preparation time, that's when writing the buffer times onto the calendar can be most beneficial. Um, Okay, we're going to go through these last two real quick, and then we're going to head over to reminders and talk through that. That's part of that life cycle, which correlates with the no response time. And actually, yeah, go ahead, Don. I'll let you before I get going.
Yep. Yeah, so the last two you see are the closed ticket handling. This is going to prevent the scheduling if the ticket's been closed. So our system is going to do a check. Now you can allow it. Usually we don't recommend it. Just if the ticket's been closed in your PSA, then most likely the appointment or scheduling request doesn't need to remain open. So if you do decide to prevent scheduling if the ticket's been closed, we usually recommend also canceling any appointments if the ticket's been closed. That way they both coincide. But that's totally up to you guys and what you want to do there. And then the last one is the no response time. This is going to be the amount of time that passes until we update the status in your PSA to the no response status. So that's going to tie in with the reminders that Johanna mentioned. Usually you're going to want this no response time to happen after all of the reminders that you have set in the appointment to go out, because then it may cause some confusion in the system that they haven't responded, but yet you're still going through the reminder process. So just be mindful to tie those two together on what time frame that you have there.
And I usually recommend somewhere in the 4-day range. You can do, I wouldn't do less than 3 days. That just gives you some time. And remember, your SLA on your ticket statuses should support this. But it gives them some time to respond. It gives you time to send them some reminders. But somewhere in that 4 to 5 day range usually is a sweet spot there. Okay, let's go down to the reminders. Now, these reminders in this classic configuration, we have two of them. We do by default. One of them is always set up at 24 hours. And then I do always recommend having two reminders for every appointment type. So how this works is they both calculate off of when the schedule invite was sent. So the first one would be 24 hours. And then the second one, you would come down and change that and maybe do 48 hours, right? And so that way they're staggered. And then you could have your no response status at day 4 or day 3. In the workflow mode that we have, you can go in and add as many as you want. So if you want to knock on their door every hour of the day, you can do that. But in this, we just have it to 2. So I hope that gives you a clear idea of the life cycle of the scheduling request, the things that you can do to support that, and some of the basic meat and potatoes of the parameters of the appointment types to support your techs and give your customers a really great experience. We want to talk a little bit more about the use cases. So I shared that how MSPs use TimeZest. We have these URLs that can be used as well. So we've talked a lot about in-ticket scheduling. And now we have these shareable URLs here. So at the top, you'll see we have two different URLs. One is the URL-based scheduling URL, and then the other is the shareable. Don, will you go into that for a moment?
Yeah, the shareable.
Yes. Excuse me. Okay. So the shareable URL, um, and actually Shannon has a question real quick. So what if we don't see cancel any appointments if the ticket is closed? We also don't see no response time. Shannon, your appointment type most likely is in workflow mode. And so that's going to be down in your workflow where those are located, which is outside of the scope of today, but you should be able to find those down in your workflow where you can make those changes. Okay. It's just going to be a little bit more of a process to locate them. No responses at the very bottom of the workflow. Okay. Um, for the shareable URL, these are great. They're very flexible. You can set them up to create new tickets when used, or you can have it use an activity or to do. We can also, depending on your primary calendar settings as a user, can have it write appointments directly to your Outlook calendar. But shareable URLs can be pretty much put anywhere and everywhere. So signature blocks is one location. Um, we also have personal and team pages, which are collections of shareable URLs. Um, but think of embedding these in web pages, turning them into QR codes, which we reference in that article quite a bit. I've had some customers submit some fantastic ideas. We had a customer who's using shareable URL for a new hardware setup call, and they put that QR code on their packing slips. So when they mail off, um, you know, the hardware to a new customer, they can open it and scan it and schedule a hardware setup call right away, right? So they're not getting in there and making a mess. They can reach out and get the help they need, and that will create a new ticket that's already scheduled and assigned for the hardware setup call. I've also had shareable URLs turned into QR codes for putting it on their on-site badges, right? So they had a QR code on their on-site badges for that, like the triage appointment type that I talked about earlier today. So that was to help with scope creep. He was saying that they were having a huge problem with customers coming up to the tech while they were on site and saying, hey, while you're here, can you fix this, right? And that wasn't calculated into their time or their project for the day. And so they would just have the customer scan their badge with the QR code and say, hey, scan this. It's going to submit a new ticket, and then we can talk about and go over that new issue. And then that keeps the customer feeling like they've had this great experience, right? You haven't ignored their issue. You haven't shrugged them off. You've actually addressed it and you've said, okay, this is important. We've set aside time to address this. And then that also allows your tech to get back to what they're there for, right? So I thought that was a fantastic submission. The QR codes are great on business cards, right? So business cards, pretty much anyone that talks to me knows I have one on a sticker inside my notebook that I take to my conferences. And so that way, if you're talking to me, I'll have you scan it and schedule time. So neither of us have to remember to reach back out. We have time on the calendar, right? So it works great. So the imagination is your limit, right? Coming up with the different ways and areas to put these shareable URLs. Don, do you have any that I missed in that?
I mean, you kind of covered it. The one cool one that I've seen use is tying the QR code to a sticker. And then you put that sticker on all new hardware that you deploy on sites, whether that be a new PC or a new switch, a new wireless access point, whatever. Printers are a big one. So if any time that device breaks or has issues, they could just simply go up to that QR code, scan it, have us open the ticket on behalf of them, as well as get it scheduled, and then your team will link up from there. So that's a pretty big one that I think gets underused in my opinion, but it could be really beneficial for you and your customers.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I love it. Yeah, that's fantastic. So the shareable URLs and the personal and team pages are great, and I'll put some documentation about that in the chat as well. Um, what I would also like to touch on just real quick is that URL based scheduling link at the top. You'll see it has the SR number token or ticket number token. Um, these are great to embed in automated workflow emails within your PSA. So most MSPs I work with, they have when a customer submits a new ticket, there's an automated email that goes out to the customer that says we've received it, right? So they don't think it's just gone into a black hole. Um, and that URL can be embedded into that email. And then the SR number token or the ticket number token will auto populate and tie that appointment to the ticket, right? So it's fantastic to put in there if you want to offer right out of the gate, maybe a triage appointment type. And so Bob on your team doesn't get all of the appointments. We recommend using that in correlation with a team so that um, putting together maybe your tier one team or something of that sorts, right? Depending on what scenario it's about. But that way they get kind of rotated through the group of resources. Um, and not one person is getting all the appointment types. So there's some fantastic ideas there and ways to use that. I'm going to put the articles for the personal and shareable URLs in there. Something that, we've now talked a lot about the what to set up, what to think about on, um, how to use or where to use it in your business, I should say. A big issue is getting it adoption, getting your team to use it, getting that return on your investment of both time and energy. And so I really want to focus in on that for a moment and just give you the reference materials. I've just put them in the chat for you. So um, in there's how to support your team and implementing it into your business. And thank you to whoever's managing. I'm guessing that's Alan. So Alan's in the background. I want to give a shout out to Alan. He's our master commander in the back, pushing the buttons for me so I can just talk. But how to practically work TimeZest into your daily processes, and how to get your team to adopt it. How find those advocates within your team. Find that the user that is excited about it, sees the value, and can become an internal advocate for your team. Find ways to work it in. And I always tell people, if you don't have a plan on how you're going to use it and you don't have it laid out into your practices, and you're just like, here's this new toy, use it, nobody's going to use it. And so we have to lay out, this is how we're going to address new tickets, right? And why is it important? So it is hard, change is hard, and I am guilty of that myself. And so I understand the struggle of it, but we want to say, okay, we're not just giving you this because we're trying to give you some new way of doing something. There's a reason why. And the reason why is it is one, going to save you time and mental capacity of following up and trying to keep track of all these different tickets. But two, it provides a really clean and consistent, keyword consistent, customer experience. So if everyone in the company is sending out TimeZest for their scheduled appointments, the customer is getting the same experience across the board. They're not getting Calendly from this team. They're not getting bookings from this team. And they're not getting a direct Outlook invite. They're not getting a list of appointment type options from your dispatcher, right? So there's all these different tools, and I've seen MSPs have a handful of them and ways that they're going about scheduling. Your customer never knows how they're going to interact with you, right? So if you're able to build a consistent and clean professional experience, it's going to be overall a better experience for both your team um, and your customer base. How many times can I say experience, Don? I think that was a lot. That's a new
At least
record.
10 more.
At least 10 more. But it's an important part of this, right? So think about that. Go over those references that I gave you guys. That's the team onboarding resources. We are here to help. I think we've gone the full hour, and I usually try to keep it short, but it's really important that you guys have these basics, that you understand that our team is here to help you. You can go again to the yellow chat box in app. Don watches that most of the time, and then I'm in there here and there. But we're here to help you. So if you want to talk through use case ideas that you have, but you want to talk about what maybe we've seen as other MSPs using our best practices, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'll send you a scheduling link to talk through that. I'm happy to sit down and talk through it. Now, if you're having issues with adoption, I'm here to help with that. Let's have a conversation. So again, the yellow chat box, or you can also email help@timezest.com. It goes to the same location. And we're happy to help you guys. Any last things on your side, Dawn, that for today?
No, I think the only thing I would add in, kind of tying into the customer experience side, do a survey with your customers after implementing it and seeing the usage, do an NPS or bring it up in TBRs and ask them, what was life like before using TimeZest compared to now, and get their feedback, right? And if they're enjoying it and loving it, then to push it more and use it more within your organization. But like Johanna said, we're here to help that adoption. So don't hesitate to reach out and let us know.
Absolutely. All right, you guys, it's been wonderful. I hope you were able to get some little nuggets from this. Thank you, Dawn, for your time. Thank you, Alan, for managing the back side of the webinar. And everyone have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you all next month, hopefully. All right, bye.
Take care.